the coach leaves or whatever, the player, even the fans will feel that the player is a Sundowns player, is not a so-and-so coach signing, and their loyalties lie elsewhere, which is an unfair view, but it is the reality. I mean, it's unfair right now. The people's lives are being impacted by their opinion that this one is a Rulani player, this one is a Sundowns player, which is unfair. But the technical director is there to avoid such situations.
Let me bring it Tom. Tom, you wanted to jump in. Then I want Polani Mandomsave Ngerani. Tom, you wanted to jump in there.
Yes. No, I'm saying in the South African context, actually, even internationally, you can. The reason why someone like Pochettino was fired from Chelsea was that Chelsea wanted to have full control over even recruitment and not give the manager that power. So they were changing. That's why Maresca is more of a coach than a manager, because they're gonna just give him gonna just give him the material. They're gonna say to him, "Hey, here's the material. Use it to win according to this vision that we have." So Pochettino didn't want that. He wanted to still have a say on who comes in and all of that. That's the tip. South Africa, it's mostly coaches. It's rare to get a club that would say that the coach would have more power on who comes in. It's rare. I'm telling you, from even Sundowns down to at least Sundowns, maybe Rulani could have his way in a way, because you can see both as much as we are saying that they are not Rulani signings, you can see they've got his fingerprint somewhere somehow there. So for me, there's a difference between a coach and a manager, and the manager, it doesn't mean that you sign. Again, you will say, for example, you want a lodge, and then they have technical director and a sporting director, whoever is in charge of the recruitment, will have to evaluate and see if that's gonna make sense for the club, and if it makes sense, then they sign it for the manager. But as South Africa, they sign my players wonge the bolanda boom. PMM Nyama bolanda bo, who's that one? Loase Columbia. Gonzalez, and then tell you work with those players. Do you mean to say that Unseke or whoever was in charge had a say over who came in with Chiefs? You see, that's what I'm saying. So there's a bit of a disconnect between a manager and a coach. That's the coach. They're on a fielding. The way it's so different overseas. Utenhag does not do a drills training, because only my first team coaches who do drills and do all of those things for him. Bopeni are doing that. He does not do that. He's more focused on the tactical side and technical ability of his players, and he will tell them, "I want this, I want." Then the coaches need to filter it down.
Okay.
Yeah. So different. It's so different if we compare to our context. Our context, it's still, I think management is more in charge than the coaching side. So yeah.
Okay. Let me bring in Colin. Colin, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you? If you can talk.
Yeah, I'm okay, Mr. Uti. I'm just here for someone else, Mr. Uti. I'm out here with my notepad. I wanted to listen to but I couldn't because it keep on remind me. I'll intercheck with connecting information, Mr. Uti.
Okay, no stress. Sabe? Okay, let me do this. Let me go to Kumo. Kumo. Austin Tabi. What again? I think also. Okay. No problem. Kumo, in the South African context, man, now I'm a bit confused. It seems like Sundowns is doing what Chiefs was doing. It seems like a lot of what happens in our football, where coaches are being fired by TDs and things like that. Is it now right because Mamelodi Sundowns is doing it, or is it different in the South African context?
The only time Sundowns would actually copy what Chiefs does is to fill up a stadium. Fair. Nothing else. We're not copying what Chiefs is doing. My brother, Orlando will late, Rolando Uleze, and it was like a collaborative decision between the coach and the SD, or even a TD. I don't know if you have one or not, right? In terms of like, I don't know, like I think it was when he spoke about I want a player that can do 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So, and Rani said that, yeah, I always say I want a player who's a left winger. I want someone who's versatile, like sector, whatever the requirements might be. And he said they gave me 4 options, and I had to choose from there or from those 4 options. So, Rulani, as you know, who his mentor, Kemandi Pitso. Pitso now carte blanche. Meaning, I feel like he was quoted to say, if you're gonna fire a coach and blame the coach on the results, also give me full carte blanche on who I want to bring into the club. Which is fair. On the other hand, it's not fair because you have to look at a lot of variables. Term your coach, it's very fickle. One day you're in, one day you're out. And if you continue to practice in that way, it causes instability to the club. So, not get a sharp. The more I understand the rule is the event. No, man, like you can't, because right now, for example, okay, bringing your players as like, we say Zungule, Lodge, and okay, no. Granted, they are world class in African terms, and they are old. Because people are like saying we need to get the best, we need to get Tempers on its replacement. Or when I got father of 5, Lodge, or Tempers one for 2 seasons, and this guy who injury prone. So SD Otorna, instead of Lodge, Ariako Adams. Adams is young and is on form. O'Connor refer 8 years as opposed to 1.5 years. If we are like you or among a tool or drug driving or you get my point.
Okay.
So Rolane on a helalan for now. For long term. And I have to happen. The other thing the coaches bringing their own players. The coach and players, man, they socialize. So it can't because this guy not loyal to me. Sundowns, give example. So it can be exposed to an emotive buying as opposed to a business or technical buying when you bring in your own people.
Okay. Well, before I continue, guys, I see the comments there on TikTok. Guys, if you want to join the conversation, Fridays are for the members. So if you want to be a member of the show, you have to go to YouTube, click on subscribe, click on join. You see these people that are speaking here. There's even others that are not on the call. We have these conversations all the time. It's an amazing football group. And on Fridays, as one of the perks for the group, they choose the topic and they speak. So today is the members show. Guys, I don't know who wants to jump in. Does it change in the South African context? Because we've had TDs before. We know about TDs. We've complained about the signing of players and who signs and who must sign and do all of these things. We've all been, or not all, a lot of South African fans have been in the chorus to say, coaches must sign their own players. I know with my team, for example. So, Lebza, before I come to you, I saw Chwene jumping in and jump off. Chwene, do you want to jump in on this? And then I'll go to Lebza and Lindo.
Let me just jump in quickly. In the context of South African football, you made a point that PSL clubs remain to be PSL clubs. And Kumo says, no, but the only thing we'll copy from that team is to fill up stadiums. Fine. But if you look at the dynamics as to how things are run and how football clubs are run in our country, we're seeing similar footprints here and there, because what is happening now, people now labeling certain players or low player Gavan. It's the same thing that we experienced, that Oleki player Yabovi, Oleki player Yaman. So people must just not be too ignorant to that. There might be a veil, that covers all that goes on in the background that we are not privy to. But the veil is coming off slowly. We're starting to see the symptoms, that these symptoms are the same as those ones that we've diagnosed before, where this one has a bigger role and bigger power than this one in terms of executive decisions. I said when we get into that room, we need to build a room that is not hostile, where you are able to make a suggestion. And when I say, but this is not the way we want to go, this is the way we're going, you don't take offense. And when you make a suggestion and I'm for it, I say, no, this one is a great one. This one can work. Let's work on it. We cannot have such subdivisions, as to, and in South Africa, it's happening a lot. That's why we have so much recycling of coaches, because we don't have the right structures at our clubs. We don't. Once you have the right structure, then you know the type of coaches you're going to recruit, because we've moved away from these contracts of giving a coach 5 years, 4 years. We give you 2 years, you hit the ground running, you work, because with our technical director at the helm, understanding the vision of the club and how we want to do things, he's also able to acquire the talent because of all these other departments, and he oversees those departments. So he's able to even recruit the best players that works for the model, that works for the club, and if he can do that alongside the coach, it's a positive. But you don't want a coach that brings in one season he's brought in 6, 7 players, and then next season you fire him. Now the incoming coach has to inherit these players, but you find that the profiles that we have are not the profiles that this coach is looking for. Now we also have to recycle players, and it's affecting our football so much, because each and every end of the season, there's so many players that are being released, because who is signing these players at our teams, So in the context of South African football, we have a long way to go. That's the one thing that we need to look at, to say, guys, how do we now make sure that this gap here is filled? And this gap here, we make sure this is how we approach it, this is how we do it. And in closing, there's a question that you were asking as to how do we then now transition, into now being a modern footballing society, structure, business, because we have had our own models, whereas as in the Kaizer, I recruit 11 players, I start my team. So as a coach also, I'm privy to scouting. I have that scouting ability. I have those scouting powers. But now, where do we say, because in Europe, you don't see Jurgen Klopp saying, I want man. He gives them a profile. They bring in the players that fit into the profile, and the ones that they can afford, they buy those players, right? Okay. But others, it's not that sense. You have people say, okay, you want a striker, they just going to get anyone. This guy is a striker. You can use him. And it's happening a lot in our league. Even the players that we are importing, some of them are not even adding value to our league. It's because who is the person that's bringing these players in? So that's one thing that we need to look at. In the South African context, I think we're still a bit far, in terms of like looking at us and what Europe is doing and what we want to do and how we're moving. And I think Sundowns is moving to that direction, but they need to do it right. They need to do it right. They must not, bulldoze. They must not bulldoze it. They must gradually do it. But yeah, man, I think for me, it's a model that can work, that can improve our league and our football at large. But we must not bulldoze it. We need to make sure that we have it there. We're doing it right, and we're doing it with the right people in terms of how we recruit. We recruit the right people to come in and be technical directors in our teams. You don't just take anyone, because only CV, and for the sake of that CV, we need to see your footprint. We need to see what you're capable of. We need to reference with something that we know that you're the right person to fit this model that we're trying to build.
Okay. Let me go to Lebza, then I'll go to Lindo. Okay, actually, Lindo, jump in first. Lebza, I'm going to come to you. Lindo, South African context. Is it a model that's sustainable for many teams? Is it something we should all be looking at? How does it run within our context? Because we've seen how it runs before.
To be honest with you, I don't want to overshadow anything that the previous overthinker was saying. I think he said some incredible things in terms of his scouting, in terms of his development, in terms of the profile of players. But here in this country, it's very deep in our OT, because even those structures, you look at our APC team weight, you look at our SAP team weight, you look at the age profile. They say it's an under 21 league, but you find the structure and all of those things. And then those things is figured out my NFT teams weight. Well, NFT teams are like amateur teams. They are ran like amateur teams. Coaches don't get paid. Players don't. You understand? There's no technical. There's no direction. Coaches are not qualified. And then you look at the smaller teams in our PSL. Maybe the bigger clubs have the advantage. That's why I'm so happy for teams like Abus Kukun bringing in a TD like who's the previous guy going from Orlando Pirates, Floyd. I mean to say, bringing in Floyd. Floyd is one of the people that wanted to bring in Fernando de la Cruz even before they brought in Uhloneno Siema. He actually scouted him, and he was a coach that he wanted to bring in. You look at the coaches that he brought for Orlando Pirates, the amount of players that he signed for Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates has always been a team that relies on the TD. They bring in a coach that fits into the style and then the model of players and the profile of players that they have. You look at teams like Abu Pulukwane City, the head coach on its own. I'm not too critical because I'm a South African as well that understands that it's very difficult to get AMA licenses. But there's a coach there who's not even properly qualified. That also says that he's friends with the TD probably, or the people that hires there. So I'm friendships. Loyalty that doesn't grow football, you understand? It makes it difficult to even form structures like models and game models of understanding how the under 12s, under 13, under 15, they play up until the senior team. So you can have a model bring in. Look at what Flemingberg has done to Mamelodi Sundowns, for example, OT. Last season, he signed over 6 players with Cape Town Spurs. And you look at the development of Mamelodi Sundowns in the GDL League, absolute dominance. We play almost like the under 13 plays almost like the same as the senior team. The under 15s, the very same. You look at the talent. I think that's one of the reasons there was a dispute between him and Rulani. It was based on the amount of young players that are there at Mamelodi Sundowns that are not even making it to the senior squad. And one of the responsibilities of a technical director is to link its development in the senior team. So for me personally, I feel as a supporter, I'm going to speak as a supporter, not as a technical person here. I'm going to say I want to support a club that has that kind of model. I want to engage in a club that has that kind of model. I don't know whether it's a culture shock, obviously, in this country, such things, you understand? But I want to be involved with it. But I don't know in terms of I'm a supporter that will we be comfortable in changing a coach every 3 seasons. But I know one of the principles of being a coach is you don't get too attached to a club. But will a team like Ipulukwane City be willing to follow those models? I think it's impossible based on our grants, based on the culture that we have alone in this country. That our football is run by mafias. A businessman comes in because he has a lot of money, has a dream of owning a football team, and then he wants to direct his into the way he feels that he has no experience. If football literally run abantu that have wrong reasons in Ikelibar when OT. Our football is run by people that they are there for the wrong reasons. They are not there for the improvement of the game. So it makes it difficult. And I'm hoping that even the big clubs in this country, I made a statement yesterday, but I said I'm hoping that even Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs will start adopting this model as big clubs. You understand? That eventually, I heard you saying, OT, there's 2 ways in looking at this thing. It depends where the club is. The club, for example, might be in a space where they are starting off, they give the coach full responsibility of ensuring that he's responsible for food transfers, the academy, who's responsible for the analysis and all those things, and every aspect of the technical part of the club, of the team, I mean to say. And then there's a club that is in a space like Mamelodi Sundowns, where now we're in a state where we want to shift to a model where it's about dominance and it's about winning big trophies. And if you want to win big trophies, I guess, that's the model that you need to take. And I, for one, as a person, enjoys that model. I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to be adopted by the other clubs. I don't know. Which it begs the question: does Jose Rivero, Orlando Pirates, if he doesn't win the league next year, does he lose his job? You know.
Okay. There's gonna be. I want to just give Lebza a chance to come in before I ask another question. There's a question I want to ask with all of this. Lebza, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. No. I wanted to comment on the issue of the signings that was brought up. That, as I said earlier, signings in this kind of a structure would be on a role basis instead of a
player basis.
Player basis, because I'm gonna be unfair here and say, look at a player like Mabasa. He was a top goal scorer, of course. I'm not gonna dispute that, but does his persona and role fit into the Sundowns way of playing? And what assessment was done to determine that, if so? Whereas the role of an SD would go with the scouting team and say, okay, if you want a Mabasa, let's sit down, let's assess. Let's look at the role that you want to fill, a striker. Let's put Mabasa along with the people that we've found. Does he fit the culture? Does he fit the way of playing of Mamelodi Sundowns? How many times does he get injured? How many games has he played? And all of that. You assess all of that, and you profile a player and you bring it back to the club.
Yeah.
If a coach wanted that player, but the player is not fitting in anywhere in the club, then the club does not pursue that, does not go with that. And it would feel like you're tying the hands of the coach. But the fact is, based on all the assessments, the matrix that the club looks at, the player you want does not fit there, and you'd feel aggrieved, rightfully so, because when the results don't come, people look at you and be like, you are not delivering. But to be fair, the clubs need to sign players that fit profiles that are needed. They look at the role that needs to be filled, and not an individual that's going to fill that role. They look at that role and go scout everywhere for the best roles for the club. The ones that will come in and fit. I mean, look at player like Ribeiro did not need time to adapt to Sundowns. He came in and he was just there. And he plays like a Sundowns player. And it's just fascinating, because you don't even think a coach went like, go to Brazil or wherever and look at that player and that's what I want. It's because the scouting team went and looked at a role, and they brought back players, and they brought back Ribeiro. So in essence, in short, what I'm saying is the SD and the scouting team are there for a reason. That the coach just needs to say, I need these roles, and then that's it. They go look, bring back the list, and the coach chooses from that, because they can't just give a coach a player for the sake of giving a player, but they bring back a list of players, and then he chooses from that, because they would have assessed all the other matrix that fit the club. And I close.
Mto, do you want to say something there quickly?
Yes, Mr. Oti. I just wanted to add this point that for me, Also, I agree with, I remember the speaker who said that South African clubs need to adopt this model. It will make us even more, our league even more competitive, because it will be clear what the role of a T10 and SD is, not what is happening currently. For me, the main job of a T10 to do a technical evaluation of the club. From the performance of the development, the scouting, the squad, the technical team, and assess the recruitment as well, just to see if the objectives are being achieved. Otherwise, there won't be a return of any investment the club is making. I mean, it is clear every season they should be able to have a scorecard to say, okay, this is how we perform this season, and then make the recommendations to the SD to fix any issues that were identified. Otherwise, we'll end up still going around in the same circles like we have been with Chiefs for the past, I don't know how many. And this guy hasn't had any proven track record of scoring goals, even where he comes from. It was, I don't know what inspired such a. So the scouting was, that scorecard somebody would get one. You know, you evaluate everywhere. That was what has worked, what hasn't worked. And to be fair, most South African clubs, I don't know if they use impulse a lot, and it's not really driven by something that is more useful.
Like
I mean, we don't know. We don't know how the signings are happening. We just see PML just ballooning from somewhere, and then we have all expectations. Whereas, if we had done the scouting, we would know he only spent 8 months in his last club and he failed dismally. Even after Chiefs, he failed. You see, so really, we need to get to that point where we professionalize our clubs to their role must be respected, so that I'm telling you, the output that would come from that, the league will be more competitive, in my opinion.
Okay, so I just want to jump in and say, guys, you're listening to the member show. This is a call that is facilitated from our WhatsApp group. The people who are here and a ton of other people are members of the show on that side. Friday is their show. They chose the topic. They took over right now. And then there's a WhatsApp group. If you want to join the WhatsApp group, click on join. If you're on YouTube right now, click on join. In the members area, there's a link to the WhatsApp group. These conversations, I'm giving you a glimpse of the conversations that we have inside that group. And if you have not followed, please follow. Guys, this is where I want to take this conversation now. I want to speak about accountability. And I want to speak about it from the point of view of, fine, we're saying the TD is accountable for the longevity of a club. The TD is accountable for assessing whether the coach's requests are the ones that are correct and which ones we're going to look at, and finances and all of that stuff. Great. How do we stop coaches from being scapegoats? Because for me, I don't know how to assess a technical director's job, right, as a fan. And unfortunately for coaches, we look there and we say, yeah, this coach didn't win this cup, he didn't win the league, he didn't do this, he didn't do this. All of their stuff is up front and it's right there for everybody to see and judge. How do we make sure that the TDs are also held accountable? Because there's a lot of TDs in the country that are firing coaches that have done very well, allegedly, that have years of underperforming under their belts, but nobody's, clamoring for them or fighting them. I mean, if you look at Kaizer Chiefs, for example, 9 years of a trophyless run, I've yet to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've yet to see fans be as angry at Bobby, for example, and not to condone the action, but I've never seen things thrown at Bobby sitting there, or Kaizer Jr., the SD. It's always at the coaches. And in some cases, these coaches become scapegoats. How do we hold these technical directors accountable, guys? And are we ready for that type of thing in SA in terms of us as fans?
Just to jump in, OT, for me, overseas is done much better than we do it here in SA. Overseas, they hold a technical director responsible. So I like what they did with my club, Menu brought in Wilcox because it was a mess.
from a medical department United. There were so many injuries that were not making sense. Ever since he came, it was a huge improvement even in terms of injury record, because he appointed people who were right glamour departments, those key departments, So the board that came in with this new ownership, they're starting to do the right things. So for me, the board does not hold the technical director responsible, like in the previous regime here, United, where there was just yes men. They just wanted people to do whatever they wanted. That's all. That's the problem. I feel like in the SA context, that's where we are. We've got a lot of yes men who just gonna do exactly as they're told. There's no there's no method into whatever they are doing. It's just that. So it's difficult to hold yes men accountable, because he's just doing what you are doing. So part of why they are not held accountable is because of the board of directors. They are happy with being a yes man. So until that kind of changes, it's going to be difficult to hold TDs accountable.
Because in the international context, they sweep clean. Usually when a coach gets fired, the TD goes to. Guys, how do you feel about this? How do we make sure that these TDs also are in line? That guys, now where we see something, yes, lelo, and we understand why, but their results are not as out there as other people's results. How do we go about maybe creating that accountability?
If I may go.
Go ahead, Debs.
I mean, teams have been changing technical directors for one reason or the other. But in my view is, if we keep getting coaches and not winning anything, well, anything is relative, of course. And we keep on chopping and changing and seeing the turnover of players being ridiculous, then we need to ask the question, or is it really a question of the coach, or is it the TD? If we keep on seeing this coach coming in, this one leaving, this one coming in, this one leaving, without a sense of achievement in a way, then the question, because right now the objective of Sundowns, if it's not clear to anyone, is to win the Champions League. If we are in the pursuit of Champions League and we are not bringing in the right people to get us the Champions League, then the TD is failing us in a way. So that assessment will be down to the board, of course, and the chairman. But in essence, if we bring coaches that don't align with the team, that don't win the objectives of the team, it's similar to how a coach gets given the power to say, I want this, I want that, and they get given all of that, and they get fired when they don't deliver. Similarly, the TD gets given the coach that he wants, he gets given the medical team that he wants, he gets the scouting team that he wants to go assess players on behalf of the club, and still fails to deliver. That's when the club needs to sit down and say, are we really achieving our objectives with this guy? And is there someone else who can implement our vision differently, and they get rid of him from there?
So, Lebza, are fans powerless in terms of the TD? Is there a situation where we could make enough noise to say, our Maraka is pagan everywhere? Is there something like that? Can it be done?
I don't think fans are powerless. I think it's a matter of fans understanding roles of people at the club. I mean, the technical director position is fairly new in the world, and to South Africa it's even worse. We don't even understand it, majority of us. So you can't hold someone accountable when you don't know what their role is. I think as time goes by, people will start understanding and start seeing more of this position and start making decisions better. So it's a matter of people growing accustomed to this sporting director role and knowing what their responsibilities are, then they can hold their sporting director accountable. These kind of conversations illuminate on what the responsibilities are, what the role is. And the more we do these kind of conversations, the more we learn. I mean, it's only when I started coming to this group where I started going to YouTube to look at positioning, to look at half spaces, to look at pivots and all of that, and understand football better. So the more we have these kind of conversations, it's the more people start to learn the role. And instead of saying this white man is coming here to destroy black coaches and whatnot, we start to say, what was the role of this person? Is he feeling like he's achieving targets because of this coach or not? So yeah, that's just me.
Guys, anybody else want to jump in? Oh, Theo,
yeah, it's like nothing in the tension, yeah, but I'm glad that we are generalizing everything. I saw Kulum down. Why it's just cartel? Our heads are spinning. But anyway, let me greet you out. Sorry for coming in late, man. I'm kind of busy at the moment. But yeah, let me just say my piece and leave, but I'm gonna still be around just to listen to the show. I think Sundowns is taking a very interesting step towards achieving their goals. I believe when they brought in Pitso, they made their intentions clear. Unfortunately, some of us, as I was talking to Con, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I think he made me see, we have been watching football from an eyes of fans, not as in the eyes of lovers of South African football, or the ones who want to see South African football grow anyway. Rulani more than anything, but I was blinded by the fact that he was given objectives, he was given mandates, and unfortunately, Sundowns is not in a development stage. Sundowns should be in a dominant stage. So some of us, we are looking at Sundowns in the eyes of development. No, they are still trying. They should not be trying. They should be thriving, actually. You can't tell me with a team that has spent as much as they've spent, the team that has just won AFL, the first cup, AFL, and then after that, they failed to even reach the final of the Champions League. That is to say a big no to him as a coach. But yeah, looking at it in a broader aspect, I think we are reaching a certain level where owners of teams, they need to become more interested in the game and also learn from the game, because what seems like about Madrid, we have been told that Perez wanted Mbappe from 2 seasons ago, but we have not been told the dealings within the structure itself. But now, since this thing Rulani has risen up, there are certain people who just want the team to grow, but there are certain people who want the team to thrive within the structures of the game of Sundowns itself. So for me personally, you can't hold someone accountable if you don't know their duties. I think how much duties the city so far, we are learning, as other guys have said here. We are already learning with the guy came in with good intentions, not bad intentions. I also had a problem with learning because I was like, what? This guy, but now I'm learning to understand. With Rulani was given a mandate and he failed the mandate and then had excuses, but the excuses to not win you the game. And I would quote what Agent once said before, if Sundowns fails to show why they are dominant at the moment, they are so-called dominant. I would say so-called because I don't believe that they are dominant. But their so-called dominance is there. If they do not show up and say, maybe after 5 or 10 seasons, and say, this is what we have won in these 5 or 10 seasons, then it would be just a story. You look at Abo Chiefs, when they were dominant, they have trophies to show for. Abo Madrid right now, they have trophies to show for. Man City, so now, it's going to be a question of what is it that they have to show for. Being empathetic towards someone because you love them, it's a problem. But I think you need to bring people that know the game and know the football itself and understand they need to grow. You can't tell me Ahly is always looking at overseas players, where Sundowns is always looking at local players, and then they expect to get the same results as Ahly. It's impossible. So I think Fleming is doing the right thing, even though I didn't accept it before. But I think he's doing the right thing, and I think his duties are going to prove over time.
So then, Theo, question is that I'm hearing that Mamelodi Sundowns didn't reach their goals, and we'll use them as example. How much of that responsibility in the past 2 years falls to Fleming? Because, you know, as the technical director, and what we're discussing here, he probably had a big say in Mangoba getting demoted, probably had a big say in Rulani getting promoted, probably had a big say in Lodge, Zungu, all of the players that we're saying were not Sundowns players coming in. The success of the club, going from, was it a treble to now AFL and thing. It's not to say that Fleming is bad, but are we then not letting him go for the 2 years that he has been here? Guti, mara now Ebola. Whether you get what I mean? Because I'm not hearing that conversation being said. Guti, okay, if we're saying that Mamelodi Sundowns didn't reach its goals, what responsibility does the TD have in terms of those goals that have been reached or not reached? You know, if we say the club spent 200 million, 150 million on players for last season, we're going to go buy these players. Do you look at them and say, actually, or are we doing that thing we do in South Africa in general where Spyro coach and then everybody goes, phew. You get what I mean? Are we ready for this?
Okay, I think you're bringing a good point there, OT. You would see. I think it is Lino who said, why don't you fire everyone? Yeah, well, if that's the case, the goals were not met. But I think Sundowns OT over the years, they've been able to clean their house so clean that you will not even see that there were certain problems within the team. And I probably think they had clashes. I think there are clashes there and there. Just that maybe they were not that much exposed. For an example, I think the signing of Zungu, not Lodge, there was tension. Especially Lera Zungu, even him playing in that game in Pirates, even Rulani comes and says, Mangoba told me not to put him in, not to take him out or something like that. So I think that tells you the stubbornness, with which part was it coming from. But overall, I think you look at a guy like Martinez, that other small boy. You look at him, you look at Sereno OT, let's be honest. I think Fleming was trying to say, I want Sereno to play, but simply because you don't want to bring Sereno in, I'll bring a player like Sereno. And then Rulani still said, I'm not going to play him anyway. You understand? So to take it much more in a broader sense, I would say maybe Fleming went to the management and said, nah, man, I'm busy trying to tell this guy to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're having this kind of a challenge. And then who knows? I can't work with this guy. And then maybe they said, you know what, when Fleming, we understand you because you have brought in talent, you have brought in guys. But the coach because Kulane was dwelling on that, but he talks too much. So maybe there were certain things that were said by him that by Ruru actually that made it easier for the team to say, let him take the fall and let's save Fleming. But I think Fleming's day now will come if next season they do nothing. If they don't win anything, he's going to be in trouble. But also, I think Fleming OT, as much as we can blame him and say anything about him, he's not the one who selects the first 11. And certain players that Ururu was not putting on the bench OT were the reasons why they could not win certain games. You can't tell me, Gucci, Sereno. I'm talking about a player that has been playing from Pitso, you understand, like the experience and the experience that he had even abroad. Yet you're going to put Masego as a sub and then you put Sereno on the stand. I think those things will come into question when they check Lentole OT. Yeah.
And I think that's where I want to take the conversation. If we are now saying that we're changing and we're moving towards a TD-driven league, what's the role of a coach? What say do coaches have now? What does that relationship look like? And I'm going to open up the floor to say, I'm a coach now. Are we now accepting that by and large, I'm not going to get my players? By and large, I'm going to play with players that come from a management that obviously is trying to look after the club. That a lot of my job that I'm going to have to relinquish a lot of that control, because if we're having a conversation about these players that were brought in by Fleming, and if Rulani didn't want them, let's say, and we're going to hold Rulani accountable for playing them or not playing them, are we then making the coach's job a bit difficult to say that, I didn't ask for these guys, they gave me these guys, I played the ones I'm comfortable with, I may have won and lost or did whatever, but that is where I'm going to die. Pitso said it, that if you're going to hold me accountable at the end of the day, what happens if you guys are not giving me the tools that I need to have? So what happens to the coaching dynamic of the country? And the nice thing about Real Madrid, just to go back, Perez has to stand in front of everyone every 5 years. There's a public election. There's a public dressing down. He has to come with everything is done in the 5 years, put it on the table, and you get judged by way of voting, right? So there's an accountability there. But on this side, what happens there? Let's talk about the coaches. Lebza, coaching, how then do you work this thing? Because even Pep Guardiola, when he's got his own TD from Barcelona, but when he wants to sign, he submits 5 names in terms of importance and gives it to the club, and the club does whatever they need to do, and they get him essentially what he has decided on, for example. How does coaching change with this?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think it's a matter of breaking cultures and traditions.
Yeah.
Because you look at a team like Sundowns, Rulani can go directly to Kloppy and raise concerns and speak about certain things because there's that thing of, I've been here longer, and I'm not going to be told by this SD or whatever. The change that's coming in, the coach that's going to get hired is a coach who understands that their decisions are going to be communicated with the SD, and decisions are going to be made from there, and they report to the SD, and there won't be that level of I want to use a kind of word of undermining seniority, So in a way, when they employ a coach now, there's going to be clear lines drawn, and a coach agrees to what the club is trying to achieve and the direction they're trying to take. So now it's a matter of coach, come in, let's have a conversation. This is the structure of the club. This is the person who's responsible for this. This is a person who's responsible for that. Is there something that you can work with? The reason why it was initially hard to do that, in my opinion, is that our SD found those guys there. He was new. He was the new guy.
Yes,
and
I agree.
He couldn't all of a sudden be like, get rid of this person, get rid of that person. He did not understand the dynamics of our club or the cultures. He came with a wealth of experience that is impressive when you look at his profile. Very, very impressive. But at the same time, we were still a team that he needed to learn about and see what changes he can make, what works, what doesn't. So similarly now, the coach that's going to be hired, if it's not Mangoba, it's going to be a coach would have to concede that this is the structure of the club. I'm willing to work under it. If they're not willing to work under it, they'll be like, no, I'll find employment elsewhere because I'm not agreeing with this. So now we have a platform where a director will be given the power that he needs without fear of, this is the tradition, I found these people here and whatnot. And Mangoba strikes me as a person who follows protocol, who follows the club hierarchy. So we will see how this pans out, because right now, for me, I'm excited about the change, but at the same time, it might backfire and we end up with an egg in our face. But I'm not excited about the change regardless. So
will we see will we see chameleons going forward? Will we see long-term tactical changes? Because if you look at a club like Ahly, for example, and I had said it the previous night, you look at a club like Ahly, there's not that much that changes tactically every year upon year, because you know that you've got your 2 years, you have to come in and come out. So will we see more of these expensive type of big ideas coming through, or will the ideas have to come from the TD side?
I think Sundowns has maintained a certain style of play. I mean, even the chameleon football still, to some extent, adhered to the shoeshine and piano type of the football, but of course, with less freedom for players, if I may say that, and less freedom in the sense of we play pass and rotational football instead of Mushishi finding spaces and dazzling and passing when he sees that there's an opening, you know.
Yeah.
So we've kept our identity for a long time. I think a coach is going to add to that, but predominantly, I think a coach comes in and plays to the style of the team instead of completely overhauling the style of the team and bringing in. I don't think there's going to be too much of a change at Downs. Of course, it's going to be more different in terms of position and natural positions. Because under Rulani, we had CDMs converted to centre backs, and players like Zungu on some days playing centre back instead of thingy. So I think there's going to be that change of natural position of players. So it's not going to be too different in terms of style of play. That's just my opinion. It's just that at this point, in my opinion, I think we need coach with a plan C. In terms of play, we shouldn't stick to be like you either play this or you're out. There's going to be games where we need to play negative football. And then where we can play the shushan and piano that we are used to. But we just need plan B. It looked like last season, it looked like whenever we played our style, like the chameleon football, we stuck to it no matter whether it worked or not. We never had plan B in terms of let's play negative and that's it. So yeah, that's just my opinion. Yeah,
guys, I'm opening it up. How is coaching going to change with the emergence of technical directors and the type of power we've been speaking about here, and knowing that you're only going to have 1 or 2 years? What's going to happen to coaching as a whole, guys? I don't know. Kavin?
Sure, Uchi. Greetings to everyone. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that you guys are having here, and then some of us are learning. I mean, just learn now the difference between the sporting director and the technical director, which is very interesting, and then it helps us now to see this whole Rulani thing, how it pan out. But then you ask a very important question that you ask Uthi. I wish everyone else maybe can have a bite on it. Uthi. If we say Rulani didn't meet his objective, and then maybe that's where the let him going or happened. And what about sporting director? Did he meet his objective as well? Because, and also you asked the question, how can we hold him accountable if maybe things don't go his way? So I think maybe the KPI and maybe the objectives should be made clear on public, as the same way Rulani or the coaches made the mandate. It's made on public that if you fail to win the Champions League, then you go away. So I think also, so for us to make the sporting director accountable, we should know what his mandate on the team, and so that we can judge him by that. So if we're saying he fails to take the team to the Champions League final as well, we know okay, that's where you fail. Because right now we don't know exactly what his mandate and what his objection, and then what does he do in the team. But then I think we should know that as well. And then also I think in terms of going forward to Sundowns, I think Mina Mangoba is for now is the right person to take us forward, because he has been there with the team all these years. Because right now I've seen some of the videos. You can sense that the tension. The players are not really as jubilant as they used to be with Orlando, because you know how the relationships they have with the coach Orlando. So it's gonna be difficult if you bring a new coach. For him to win the dressing room, it's gonna be very, very, very difficult. For continuity, I think Mangoba for now, maybe we can look at having another coach maybe the next year. But right now, if also Steve is willing to come back, I'll take Steve with Mangoba to continue with the Sundowns thing. But then bringing a new coach right now when things are like this, because as much as we want, you know how the bond and the relationship that Rulani has created with his players, it's not gonna go overnight. As much as we say these guys are professional, they know their job, they know they're contracted, but then Rulani created something, the bond that those guys have with the players, it's huge. So at least Mangoba was there. Steve is also familiar with the situation. For us to continue, we need Mangoba and Steve maybe to continue. But then bring another coach up, it's not going to be easy. But then otherwise, interesting conversation. I've learned a lot today with Fleming, because I've been hearing, taking whatever I'm reading on the socials and whatnot. But then I think I understand, and also now I understand that the situation Rulani even more on a emotional situation. I can see where Rulani was wrong, and then I can see where we misunderstand Fleming. But then with that said, I mean, Fleming, I don't know. We'll see when the next season we'll see.
No, I see you arrived late. It's fine. In terms of the talking, guys. How does coaching change, Agent? Welcome. I'm going to throw you into the deep end. How does coaching change? Because we've had this conversation about the TDs now, the separation of power and all of that stuff. And now you're moving into a model where, for all intents and purposes, it's probably going to be 2 years in, 2 years out, 2 years in, maybe, if you are lucky. How does that change in terms of Sundowns, but also how does it change if a whole league was to move towards these TDs and them having power and coaches maybe having muted power?
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I've just been getting a tunneling that I spend most of my time with George. Maybe George is the side. But I think we're a bit behind as a country, as a nation, as a league. Some of these things, most teams have moved towards them, and sometimes I feel like we need to differentiate between legacy coaches. Like there are some coaches that have legacy, those guys have more power than a new arriving coach, and your legacy, once you make 10, 20 transfers, and you're like, okay, at least with your transfers, you have an 80% success rate. You are taking the power from the TD to yourself and say, but guys, look at my signings. You can trust my judgment, So people like Abu Pep and others, they've earned that trust, So I feel like some of these things, it's not necessarily a changing thing. I feel like if you have a coach, let's say Mangoba, and he has his own signings, because every coach will always have his own signings. After 5-6 years, whatever the time is, he's still gonna earn some power if his signings were good enough. The TD has to make sure that the club is sustainable. If the club is sustainable, and the way it is sustainable is looks like the coaches an eye for talent, then you let it go in that direction. But it doesn't mean that the next coach is gonna have the same leeway. He also has to earn that respect. And also, I want us to look at the Brighton model. Look at the Brighton. coach in, coach out, coach in, coach out, but the model is still the same, because they have a foundation, they have a TD which is working out, they have everything which is working out, And quickly, so that I can go back to your question, look at Man United, 10 years, trophy drought, The new guy comes like, hey guys, I get Sir Alex Ferguson used to do these things. I guess I get you guys used to do this thing a certain way. If Ten Hag says I want 100 million, you guys get him. I get it. There's always been a tradition, but it's not working out, And looks like the club is not going out in that direction. He goes out and gets the recruitment director, sporting director, technical director, football director, club director. Those are footballing people that help to make footballing decisions, And Rulani himself said this, that the coach, the TD won't bring a player that I don't want because I have the veto power and vice versa, So I feel like it's a model which has to come in, that has to sustain the club, And back to Fleming, he has made a lot of wrong decisions. Like, we're always going to have a lot of wrong decisions, right? But let's not, what is it called? Foresee or not foresee, but I think let's not put water on what he has done, in the sense that pre-Kloppy, because I think I'm going to merge them into one thing, pre-Kloppy, pre-Flaming back, Sundowns always used to give you bloating contracts, and people will be say like, they want to destroy talent, they don't want you to play against your team, they want to do this, And I don't know how true that was. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But right now, you're seeing a lot of players being released by Sundowns, Okay. So I think for me, that's a positive. That guys, if you don't have space here, what is the use of keeping you here if you're not in the coach's plans, And also, we are moving towards a sustainability model. We're moving towards being a global brand. Yes, we have the money. Yes, we don't need the sponsors. Yes, we don't need whatever. But with sponsors comes global view, and we need that global view. So I think let's not shy away from things that we cannot judge Fleming by what happens on the football decision, on the football alone. It's a bigger role. We have to look at the clubs in its entirety. Is it getting the recognition that it deserves? Is it the technical side of it, the Facebook side of it? I know Lebohang's a big fan of it. So you have to look at Fleming. Like, what are you doing about social medias? Stuff like that. That is where Fleming is. Wherever we go, we have to look at Fleming. Fleming, my guy, looks like the Twitter space is not good. Looks like the announcement is not good. Those are the kind that we look at Fleming. So it would be unfair to say next year if we don't win CAF, or in 2 years we don't win CAF, we say Fleming must go. That's unfair because his success or his failures are not only judged on the football field. That is where the coach is.
Okay. But guys, how does it change coaching? Hey, you guys, man, how does it change coaching? Because the way I see it is that in South Africa, we've all been saying the coach must choose these players. Now we're saying that coaches must fit into the structures that are created by the club, right? So that means that I might not be able to be as influential on the pitch as I want to be. So, for example, I view Rulani's chameleon, for example, as a long-term approach, right? It was going to be something where, we're learning how to implement this thing. We're learning how to play these things. People are now being played in different positions. There's liberos. There's all of these different type of stuff that is being brought in by this coach that needs time to be implemented. You don't get that time at an Ahly, for example. You might not get that time at Real Madrid.
Can I ask you a question? Wasn't Sundowns still a possession-based team?
I don't think it will. No, I think still have.
Let me give you another example. Perhaps Barcelona. But whoever the coach is, he still has to work throughout. Within the confines of tiki-taka. We can be fast, can be slow, can do whatever, but there's a confine. So for me, that's why the TD is important in choosing the coach, the next coach. The next coach, you can bring your chameleon, you can bring your lizard, but it still has to be within the confines of our Shushan and Piano. We can't bring in Kevin Hunt, for example, because we want F. So I feel like for me, that's where we're going.
But
that's
then
why
in terms of control, I will no longer be able to come in and say, fine, it's Shushan and Piano, but I need to advance it 10 years, this Shushan and Piano, And in order for this Shushan and piano to look like this, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, and I need players that can do this and this and this. I don't think you have that time anymore in this new realm of where
But I think with the
Mamelodi
players,
Sundowns
because
wants to
the
go.
players are system players, no matter how you reinvent the wheel, there will always be a way of reinventing the players because they're based on a system. So for me, I don't see that as a problem, to be honest. But
No,
anyways,
it's
thank
not
you
a
for that.
problem. I'm asking, how does it change? That's what I'm asking. Rulani
I don't think it
changed a
changed.
lot of things because I think he thought he had a lot of time with Mamelodi Sundowns. You get what I mean? Like Pep Guardiola arrived at Manchester United and he earns it, but it's a long-term view and everybody understands. Ahly
But he was changing.
doesn't change that much. For example, Ahly, we watched it this year, we watched it last year, we watched it the year before. Hashem. It's the same thing, and maybe the coach is coming in with mentality over tactics. So how does that change in terms of now? Because the conversation before you came on was the league in general should move towards that place. Now, in terms of how we develop coaches and how they're going to act in the future, does it mean that South Africa or whoever comes in or whatever would need to develop more flexible coaches? Or do they need to be more now? You must understand that you've got 2 years. You come in, you look at what's there. You might not get all of the players that you want. You might not sign everything. Yes, it's your type of football. Maybe if we're also taking that into account, it's your type of football or it's close to what you're going to play. But you no longer, the steering wheel is not yours in full, if that makes sense. Manchester United, Ten Hag is now no longer a manager. He technically got demoted to head coach, for example.
Yeah, but I think for me, like I said, that's my last point. I think we're moving towards. I think we're the one who said this. You correct me if I'm wrong. That for a team that has a system, it's easy. You must first establish a system. If you're Kaizer Chiefs, you can't afford what you're doing. You can't afford it. You must have a system, and once the system is intact, you can bring in a coach. Let's go back to Brighton for a second. Dezebi is a different manager to Graham Potter. Is a different manager to what is that other guy? Chris something. I'm forgetting his name.
Hughes.
Right?
Was it Chris Hughes?
Chris Hughes. Yeah, you know. So, and even there's a new one who's still 20 years old. You know. But the football stays the same. But Dezebi's football was different from Potter's football, but it's still within the confines of the way Brighton plays. So for me, I feel like I'm moving to a place where we are bringing in specialty coaches for specialty teams. Supersport.
That's what I want to know. So are we now developing specialities?
Yes.
That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that's where we are heading, that you must be a specialist. You must be a tic-tac specialist. You must be a defending specialist at Supersport, you know. And for me, I don't know if that's a good or bad, but we'll see. Yeah, cheers, man.
Okay. So you wanted to jump in there. How does coaching change in terms of the approach to coaching now? Because clearly, if we all move to this thing, I can't expect to be Pep. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it doesn't make sense. What I'm seeing happening is that first, number one, with Amatitis, Glamatlabs, we're gonna eliminate a lot of excuses from the coaches.
Okay.
Because if you are given a mandate to play a certain way, and maybe you've made your own recommendations of the players you want, and you are given those players, then you have to be held accountable for, one, maybe the performance of the team in terms of Tolama points on the league and cups and whatever, and then in terms of the style of play. You can't have all of the resources that you want and then play a helicopter football. That's one. So I think it's going to expose the coaches who don't know what they are doing. A lot of those coaches would be, because most of the time, I don't know if you've seen, when the coach gets fired, he then comes out with that excuse, which I was not supported in terms of the players I wanted and wara. So I think that's where the Rulani situation is a bit different, because Rulani was spoiled for choice. So he was spoiled for choice. So they judged him differently. He was not judged on his performance at the team, but the objectives of the club, maybe. Have we moved forward in terms of the African dominance thing that Motsepe wanted, all of this time, or we're still stuck in the same place. Yeah, so for me, having a technical director will expose those who want really good coaches. Imagine a good coach like Rulani is now gone because of certain things like objectives of the club. How much more if you are a coach that is coaching like a cheaper? Every cheaper is the worst example because it's owner run. It's the worst example. Yeah, but
then can I ask? Rulani, I guess, got the benefit of the doubt because he's 12 years into Sundowns. So even when he does the chameleon has 11 years of Sundowns knowledge, experience. Under 19, he was speaking about everything, right? The next guy is not going to have that luxury of, I understand Sundowns so much that, I can take Mangoba's diamond or Pitso's diamond and I can turn it into this and I can do that. That's the one question, Guti. They're not going to have the control coming in. And then the secondary question, I like what Umusa says here on TikTok. Who's going to be responsible for the progressing of the style of play? And can we trust technical directors to be able to not only foresee the next step for Shushan and Piano, but to be able to implement it? If that makes sense. Are we trusting those guys to have the foresight and the skill and you get me, to move forward?
No. Hey, it's gonna be a tricky one especially for a club like Sundowns, because I mean they are close to getting it right, even in terms of the CAF Champions League. They weren't really far off. I mean, semi-final. If it was Kaizer Chiefs, we would be celebrating reaching a semi-final. But this is Sundowns. But this is Sundowns. So Sundowns, they want more because they've experienced the semi-finals. I don't know for the past how many years. So obviously. It's gonna be difficult for any coach coming in because you also want to have your own fingerprint on the squad. You can't say because Rulani played this way. So if the technical director can be clear, because no, this is how we play. You can tweak it here and there to have your identity, but this is the main style of play is this. So don't mess around too much with that. You can adjust your tactics as it goes, but don't mess around with the style of. Then that's another story. You can. I find it the Sundowns thing is so interesting, guys. Whoever is going to come in is going to the standards are really high. If Roland was fired and they've managed to reach this, the standards are really, really that high with Sundowns. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. So for me, with Sundowns is the one case where we can't really say how it's going to turn out. But for your Chiefs, where there's no style of play, where there's no direction, that's where we really need to see a technical director that can put his foot down to say no, but guys, we can't continue as it was in the past. We need to now have a structure. We need to now have a style of play. We need to fix all of those issues that we had in the past. So for me, Sundowns case is an exceptional case. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, because any coach is gonna be under pressure from the start.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
I would say. I mean, I think also any one that we're not realizing would see flaming guys at this point. It might be happening with there were clashes of attitudes. And also don't forget, Urulani possesses most of the technical, in the technical term, Urulani possesses most of the qualities that the technical director might have. You understand? So it's going to be a big challenge for Fleming right now to find someone who's not just going to. It's going to be interesting, actually, not the challenge, but it's going to be interesting if you find someone who's going to say, "I'm just to coach. I'm not going to be focusing on development, the young stars, and I'm not going to be part of it," because I believe a technical director's duties is those things. I think Fleming, when he sound the alarm, where like he's saying, "Now I'm taking my stand," that's where maybe backlash corner, because Rulani wants to be part of that grassroots level. Whereas Fleming is saying, "That's my level, that's my structure, and you should not be part of it." But I think that if they can find a guy, as you guys have been saying, who's going to come in and say, "Give me 2 years, I'll bring you guys to one Champions League in these 2 years, 2 leagues," and understand that kind of thing. Give him the mandate, it will be much better. But to go back to what you were saying, Guti, is the technical director supposed to be part of, is it going, involvement in the team style of play and whatever? How is that going to affect the next coach? For me, I think if Nangabe you find a coach like Abu Pitso, a coach that comes in, you prove himself in the first 4 games, OT, the technical director will take his place. But if now you are still doing things that the technical director is thinking, hey, this guy is going to coach this team, he's going to step in and say, no, man, why don't you try this? I'm going to step to try and assist because he's there to assist you as well as the coach. But if a coach is not coachable, OT, if a coach is not coachable as from a technical director, because he's there to assess the whole team, not you or just the first team, to prepare the bafana situation. Guys, when you get to this team, but if now when as a coach you're stubborn, you don't want to listen to him as someone who's above you in the hierarchy of a business, then you're gonna have a problem. That's why I feel like seems like about Chiefs, OT, had they got the minor things correctly, Chiefs has a very good structure, especially in the management structure, because as a family business, Gucci, if this person is in charge of this and they're not doing their duties, you can find someone from a coaching level to come and coach him as well. Whereas about Fleming, you cannot bring someone to coach Fleming. Fleming is there to coach these guys who are under him. But Urlan, I think it was just that misunderstanding of power.
But I like what you're saying there. And my question then becomes, Fleming is 2 years into Sundowns. I don't know if Badali Shushan in Piano Denmark Angaz. But as far as I understood it, was that Upitso Figile or installer something. Upitso went and fetched Mangoba. I believe Upitso fetched Mangoba to show up as a player as a coach of Abafara 10. He has a certain style of play that fits the Sundowns and maybe close the gap for Pitso. But anyway, Mangoba comes in, Pitso come in, they take a Shushan and Piano and they put it here. Mangoba stays, maybe they advance it a little bit more in terms of the play style. Then Gwange Rulani what you chameleon, and that's meant to be the next step, right? We're not going to see that again as Sundowns, where a coach is going to have enough time to be able to understand Shushan, get the players on board, do all of those things if we're leaning towards the technical director. So the question Yami also falls to the technical director to say, Nangu Rulani was coming up with chameleons, and I don't know how much they spoke about it, but Rulani came up with chameleons. Hey, bega chinchizinto lapha. If now the next coach is not going to have that time and maybe not that control, can we trust Guti Ufleming? Leso style of play, uzokhona ukuthi communicated to the next coach, communicated to the new one, and make sure that number one, they adhere to it. But do we trust to Fleming Guti? Can you take the next step? Ngayo Leonto, and the one after that, if we also sala for 6 years, for example. That's what I'm asking here. Especially Guti coach angeke control like that anymore.
It's very interesting when I was in a sense that what if you find a coach that comes in and says the technical director style of play is his weakness. And another thing, I think it's down to Fleming is going to have to come with his coach at the end of the day. I think they're pushing that. As a technical director, bring your own coach that will feed it that you want the team to play. You bring in the players that will do what you have already facilitated and taught him or introduced him to. And for example, I don't think it's going to be difficult for Sundowns to do that, ultimately. I think Sundowns, they are a machine that is they have players that are very easy to adapt to situations, and they have players that are very professional at the end of the day. But I think it challenges over Guti. What if it's not working? What if they try? What if Rulani? And I love the fact that you are mentioning Guti. He was introducing it. I understand. As we were talking about Steve Compella, Swallows trying to play the ball from the back and it's failing, but he continued. And then Swallows nearly got the game. Now Manji thanks you because of what he was trying to do. I think the timing itself, is Sundowns at the moment, based on what Agent One said, they don't have enough time, OT. They have time to just win trophies and that's it. But if Fleming brings in a coach that I believe he can bring a coach that can the guy that Raja Casablanca, the way we are coaching Pirates, I think he was playing that style of playing.
Yeah, I think he will fit exactly what Fleming wants. I understand, and I think he's more of like a coach that is understanding to be technical, and I understand the hierarchy. So I think with Rulani, the challenge was he said he's like, you know what someone said, he has 12 years OT, he has 12 years with Sundowns, and he thought he had the time. You understand that he had 3-4 seasons, and the contract gave him that freedom. Even Atas one, if you remember, Chiefs. Sadly, teams do not honor their contracts. OT, Chiefs, they don't honor contracts. They tell you, we'll give you contracts in 3 years. Do what you have to do. After a year, they're like, "Hi guys, we don't see what you're doing, you are fired." Understand? But not understanding what you gave him 3 years. And in this case, I think for me personally, it's a good direction that they are taking, but it's a 50-50 chance that it will work or it might not work. You understand? Because Rulani was slowly advancing them into that stage, but the next coach has to make them advance immediately. So it's gonna depend on that, OT.
I think this is the very interesting conversation here, the part of the conversation. We reference a lot of teams when they're speaking about this. So, for example, people have referenced Pep and Man City. And Pep and Man City, when Man City decided that they were getting rid of Mancini and going off of that path, the first thing that they did was they hired a technical director from Barcelona that Pep had worked with. And that meant that you shortcut a lot of the problems that you might face somewhere else. He knows the style, he has a general understanding of what the style of play is meant to be, or he has a deep understanding, Shiki Bergestan, of tiki-taka and those things. He's worked with Pep. So when we put them together at Man City, the gap between the coach and the technical director is not very far. I ask again because what I'm seeing here is that Fleming is technically the new guy at Sundowns. He's got the responsibility at Sundowns, and I don't want to pass judgment on him. I don't know if he's good or bad. I'm not saying that. But Fleming is the new guy. Abu Rulani had been there for a while, which means that the custodians of how Mamelodi Sundowns played was actually within the coaches, because whatever they'd built from Pitso and whatever the culture of the club was, Abu Rulani, for example, was there since under he was an under 15, and he did what. So he grew with it. So he understands it, right? Let's say he understands it, and when he wants to make changes, he gets it. My question now becomes, you've gotten rid of him. Maybe Mangoba can help out with this change, but why do we have a trust that Fleming understands this thing and can hold it and can go forward with it automatically? I don't want to say he can and can't. I don't know if he knows the stuff. I don't know about him. But when we have these conversations, I feel like we've defaulted so much to the coach's side, where we understand the coach's side. We understand Rulani's role and all of that. So when we make our opinions, we get it. But on the TD side, can you learn Shushan and piano in 2 years? Can you learn Shushan and piano in 2 years to the point that now you can be trusted to make the next coaching appointment for the first time of a coach that's going to come from outside of Sundowns, and then also be trusted to be the one who has control enough to take it to the next level? Because up to this point, the leveling up of Shushan and piano has come from the coach's side. But now, if we go heavily into the TD side, and everybody's making the point that Sundowns is moving towards that role or that road, right? That means that TD has power, external coach comes in, they're not going to have as much time as Sundowns fans keep telling me that it's Champions League or nothing. That means I'm not going to have 2 or 3 years to develop a style of play. I'm not going to have 12 years of being with Sundowns to be able to see everything that has gone right or wrong, and then maybe make informed decisions of how I'm going to move from there, right? There's so many things that we have to question, but it's not to say, let me not say, it's not to question, but it's to watch out for when we start making these moves. At the beginning of the conversation, I asked about the South African context of being a TD. Our TDs, or the people who play the role of TD, hire, fire, they bring in a coach, Then they fire that coach. Then they bring in a coach that has nothing to do with how the previous coach was doing. Then that new coach flops, and then they get that guy out. But at no point do we question the TDs. And the nice thing about Mamelodi Sundowns right now is that it's a big enough team where we can ask these questions, right? We can check these things. We can make not assumptions, but now we've got things to look out for. So going forward, are you guys going to look at Fleming a certain way? Or are we going to look at Fleming and technical directors and judge them and understand their roles and go from there? Because still for me, it feels like even in this conversation, we're looking at the coaches and that's one side of the coin, right? But everybody just seems to go with what's happening on the other side. And the other side could be good, but can we speak about those type of things? But guys, I think I'm going to have to go now. Guys, this has been a glimpse into the members show. We have these conversations in the member, in our WhatsApp group frequently every day, and from different vantage points, different teams, different news, banter, all of that stuff, right? These people that you heard here are some of the other people that are in that group. If you want to join that group, click on join. If you're on YouTube right now, click on join. In the members area, there's a link to come into the group. And then on TikTok, in my profile, click on the link in my profile. It will take you to a page that has buttons. Click on the one that says WhatsApp or membership, and it will take you to the same page, and you can do the same thing there. This has been the members show. They chose this topic. We are the ones that for us to discuss today. The normal show is Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m., where we look at similar topics as well. So follow if you have not followed, subscribe if you have not subscribed. And also, guys, support the content. I don't know if there's many places that have these type of conversations to this depth with the different type of views that we've had here and inputs and all of that stuff. We learn every day. I learn every day. It's incredible, this football thing. So places like this where we can speak like that is great. Guys, I'll see you then a bit later on. 6 o'clock, we're going to be doing a watch along of Spain, Germany. And then we're going to do a watch along of the 9 o'clock match as well for the Euros. So please come join me, jump in. Those who are watching for the first time, this is the Friday show. So Friday show is members, the people that have clicked join on YouTube, the people that have gone to the link in my profile. And then the rest of the time, I open up and we can have conversations. The watch alongs are great because you're watching, I'm watching. I'm asking you what you guys are thinking. I'm analyzing, you're analyzing. It's a very great place and we speak. So join me 6 o'clock tonight. Guys, I'll see you.